Hello there, this is Linda. I'm at Table Talk here with some special people that we're going to hopefully give you some advice on and give a number or two that you can use perhaps if you need their services. And I'm at Real Estate One, of course, on Main Street, 1002 North Main Street. And don't forget our upcoming seminars. You can see those on our website, lindareateam.com. Can you introduce yourself, buddy?
My name is Gary Rosenberg. I am from Metro Waterproofing. We are basement waterproofing experts. I am the owner of the company. I'm a licensed residential builder in the state of Michigan. We do interior, exterior basement waterproofing solutions.
That is really needed too sometimes, isn't it? Hey, Bonnie, just tell us about you and how you fit in this a little bit.
I am Bonnie, and I work with Gary.
You met Gary through your own circumstances,
yes, I
right?
had a flood in my basement and called Gary out to fix the problem, and that started our relationship.
You want to tell us a little bit about that, just briefly?
We had a huge amount of water come in through our wall.
I saw some pictures. It was pretty high, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Did you have some furniture floating?
We had furniture floating, we had toys floating, we had everything floating. Finished basement completely demolished.
What did you think about that when you walked in and saw it?
Well, I mean, I will say this. I just presented her job to the Basement Health Association, and I was a finalist, or we were finalists for Job of the Year.
And then you turned around and hired her.
Yeah. Well, I turned around and hired her right afterwards. Well, I talked to her afterwards and asked her if she knew somebody that was looking for a part-time job, being an associate with me.
It all fit. Listen, I have a Helpful Connections book, which a lot of you know about if you've ever had me out for a presentation. This thing is priceless. What I do is, as I'm doing today, is adding people to our book that we run into issues and we need to know somebody we can trust and that has really good credential to fix the problems for our buyers and our sellers. I say buyers because sometimes they're purchasing a house and they still know that there's an issue but it needs to be fixed. And of course sellers that we try to do prior to selling it, or if you don't know about it and run into it, we have to make it right for the potential new buyer or before we put it on the market. So I'm going to ask you to explain a little bit what the typical service person that's thinking about selling a house right now, if they have some water issues in their basement. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what you do and what you don't do and how you do it.
So, water only comes from above. I'm just going to start out with that. We do a inspection on the outside of the home. As I say, water only comes from above.
Gutters too?
I start with the chimney. No, I start with the chimney. The chimney's the highest spot up.
Okay.
Water only goes down. As my dad always said, Niagara only falls. Yes, right? And that's why I say it doesn't go up, it falls.
Your dad was in the business.
My dad was in the business. My uncle came over from the East Coast in 72 with this kind of new way of doing waterproofing instead of doing the exterior waterproofing. Mm-hmm. And when I say interior, we do probably about 85% of our jobs are interior basement waterproofing jobs. Mm-hmm. One of the main reasons why we do this inside versus outside, you have a driveway that's usually against one wall of a house. Okay. You have a deck, a porch, a patio, or you could have an extension on your house that's a slab. All these things would have to be removed at the customer's cost and then be repaired for us to excavate on the outside of a house.
That makes sense.
So that's where, and I like to say what the system we do is it's a retrofit system. This system was designed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We've just tailored it a little more to what we do. So in 73, when my uncle came here with my dad, we were doing mostly exterior stuff. Mm-hmm. And then we transitioned into this interior basement waterproofing system that was saving people a lot of money. It can cost 4 to 5 times as much to do an exterior system versus
one of
interior.
the things I liked when we were discussing prior was you were educating me on some of the things that you do, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the basement has to have a full leakage all the way around, right?
Correct.
So you want to elaborate a little bit on that? If you've got a wall that's leaking?
So
or-
if you have one wall that's leaking on a house, I can fix one wall. What I like to say that we do best is we move water out of the basement, and then that's the part that I always like to say is the exact science. The inexact science is we also have to move it away from the foundation on the outside.
Yes.
Different cities and localities have different ways of how that works. Some cities will not allow me to dump water outside of a house. Okay, so we tie those into the storm sewer system on the inside.
Okay.
When we don't use a pump in a house, and I'm going to use a great example. I'm doing this in a house in St. Clair Shores today. I went to the house, I made my assessment on the house, and they already had a sump pump, and their sump pump was pumping up, and it went over to the clean out in the basement floor.
Okay.
City of St. Clair Shores says no, you can't do that anymore. People did that before, but they changed the city code.
Okay.
So I would have either had to, if we kept the pump, we would have had to go about 75 feet, break into a street to cross the street to get into the storm sewer. Or the opposite is what we're doing is we are replacing the storm trap on the house, and then we are tying the system into the storm system that's leaving the house. But we also do this with what we call a backwater valve. And what the backwater valve does is it's a check valve in the floor that if water pressure goes against it, it opens up, and then the water flows out because the water leaving the house is gravity fed, so it goes deep. And then if the storm sewer I'm going to use St. Clair Shores because this is where we're doing this job, if that ever backs up, then that check valve stays shut. It doesn't allow the water to come back. That's why they call it the backwater valve. But in most localities, we put a sump pump out in the basement, and then we have the discharge line go up and outside the house, and then we bury it underneath the ground in the yard, and we take it to what we call a dry well. Dry well is simply put, it's a 2x2 hole we dig in the ground, and we put a little gravel in the bottom of it, and then in the top of it is one of the green NDS pop-up emitters. So if that whole thing ever fills up, then the pop-up will pop up and it will just spill water outside of it. As I say, the inexact science about the discharges and taking water outside. Most of our yards around here are made of clay. Clay does not percolate water at all.
We all learn that.
So sometimes even after I put this system in, sometimes I have to come in and put actual relief systems to this because that's the inexact science. And really, if the house never had a sump pump in it before, we don't know how often the sump pump's going to go off.
Speaking of sump pumps, you mentioned that you have recommendations for some good pumps.
Yes. So when I do a typical job, I use a Zoller pump. I use their cast iron version that's been around for years. They're green. Most people that have had sump pumps have seen the green Zoller sump pumps. With every job that I quote, I offer a backup system. I am a fan of the backup battery systems. I'm not a big fan of the water jet systems. Water jet backup systems have one problem to them is most people don't go look in their sump pump pits. If the main fails and then the water jet starts kicking on, the water jet takes approximately 1 gallon of city water to pump 2 gallons, or to create the siphon to pump 2 gallons of water out of the house.
Okay.
If that main pump fails, the only way you know that main pump failed because that water jet's constantly working is you get a water bill that's $1,000 because your water's constantly going off. And that's in a perfect world because it depends if you have 1 inch line, 3/4 inch line. It could even be a 5/8 going to the backup system. So my supplier has a brand that they do. It's called Pit Boss, and it's not the grilling, the smoking devices. The Pit Boss Pro Plus combo is a backup battery system that has a controller in it. The important part about this controller is it tests itself every 48 hours. You have an app with this. It's a free monitoring service. It needs to be connected to Wi-Fi, but you do have a free monitoring service with this. And this device will tell you if I unplug it from the wall, it will tell you that the power went off. If you plug it back in, it will tell you that the power went on. If there's anything that goes wrong in that 48-hour period when it tests itself, you're going to get a notice to your phone, and there's a database that's out there. So if you were to ever call me and say, "Hey Gary, there's a problem with the pump, can you come over and take a look at it?" I can call my technical guy over at Pit Boss, and he can tell me what's going on with that pump even before I get to that house.
So if you're out of state, you're out of on vacations, or if you've got an up north cabin, or
you got
a
it.
lot of good things there.
We have one. We did put one in the basement.
That sounds good.
So, and it's actually two pumps. So it's a combo. So you have your primary pump. It's a stainless steel primary 3/4 horsepower sump, and then it's got a 1/3 horsepower backup to it. So both these pumps can go off at the same time if you ever have. So there's sensors that go in the sump pump pit. So there's a high water sensor, and then there's one that trips the backup pump. And then, the high water sensor sits higher than the backup one. So if both of those go off, both pumps can go off at the same time.
Okay.
So potentially with a 8-foot lift, potentially you could pump close to 5,200 gallons of water an hour out of the house.
Wow.
The backup battery could last up to 166 hours if the sump pump goes off every 5 minutes. If it goes off, obviously it declines as you go down. If it goes off every 2 minutes, I think it drops to about 132 hours that the backup battery can last. I like to tell people this: if you don't have a generator, or if you have a plug-in generator in your house, this is a great device to have, because your pump will always be powered, but it will give you that warning that you need to go outside and plug your generator.
Or have someone do it if you're out of town, huh?
Right.
Have somebody do it if you're out of town.
And it satisfies your insurance.
How does that work
Yes.
then, Bonnie? How does that work?
So you have to, they want sensors in your basement, especially if you've had a flood, when you go to renew it, because the Pit Boss has the sensors on it, it will satisfy
So do
the
you think
insurance.
that you get a discount for having it?
I don't think you get a discount, but you don't have to go install, because I was about to install sensors in the basement when Gary's like, nope, this has your
Because of
sensors.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
so-
good news. As you can see, he has a wealth of information here, and he also refers out, from my understanding, Gary, too, if they are only dealing with like maybe rod holes or crack in the basement, you have references for them
Correct.
for that as well.
I try to vet out all the calls before I go there, make sure that I can help them, that I can create a value for their time.
Yes.
If I understand that it's just a rod or a crack hole, a rod hole or a crack, I've got two different partners that I work with, one that's an east side guy and one that's a west side guy, that I can refer over there for just those services. Okay, if I was in a house and I was doing a full basement waterproofing system, I can do those at the same time. Right. But the last couple jobs I've done, I've actually brought one of my guys in to do it.
Let's talk briefly about what we said too. I have a lot of clients that people think, okay, the basements aren't finished, so maybe I don't have as much value. Well, they don't give you a whole lot on an appraisal anyway, but what I see value for my clients, the buyers, sometimes they like to see the blank walls because you don't know what's behind them.
Correct.
And also sometimes they box the basement out, so they'd like to finish it themselves. So let's talk about that a little bit too. You said, of course, you can only see what you can see, right?
Correct. In the real estate industry, with all the houses you go in and finish basements, the one thing that the buyer of that house can't ask you to do is tear down the walls so I can see what they look like. We typically, in most cases, people are honest and tell you these things, but if they know, right? But the one thing that's there's cabinets up. I always like to say this: you have carpet on the floor of a basement. That carpet has a padding underneath. It's like a sponge. if it's leaking against the wall and it's just like a rod hole or a crack, okay, it sometimes doesn't dissipate out far enough into the basement for you to notice it, because you don't ever walk into your basement right along the wall. So it's really difficult to see these things. I had a client a couple months ago that called me about waterproofing, totally finished basement. I went out and had to fix their discharge line, which was causing water to come back against the house. But in addition to that, they knew an area where it was leaking, so I brought one of my service guys over there. We cut the drywall. We determined where it was leaking at. We opened the wall high enough to see where the rod was at. We fixed the rod, and then after that, because the house was up for sale, I brought somebody in to finish the drywall and to paint and to close it back up.
We talked about warranties a little bit too.
So warranties, we offer a full lifetime warranty when we put an interior drain system in a house. The sump pumps carry a 3 to 5 year warranty depending on which pump option you offer. I put it out there now as I offer a backup pump on every proposal that goes out my door. Okay, I'm strongly that you need a backup sump pump. You know, it's that peace of mind.
And gutters.
Oh, and gutters. Well, let's get back to, when I first go to a house, I do an inspection. I walk outside, I look at the chimney, I look at the roof, I look at the gutters, I look at the downspouts. I look at where the downspouts go. I go to a lot of houses where there's not a downspout extender, and the downspouts just go right against the house. The houses mostly around here sit in clay. If they sit in clay, then the clay doesn't allow water to percolate down into the ground fast enough below the house, but it will go towards the foundation, because that foundation ends up being the weak spot in the ground after they built the house. When they first build a house in clay, they dig a hole in the clay, and what they do is they cut off the clay veins that are traveling water underground to water sources. State of Michigan, I've heard 2 different numbers recently. You're no more than 6 miles from an above ground water source. You're no more than 10 miles from a lake, anywhere in the state of Michigan.
So this is all things foundation, guys. If you need some help in your home, whether you're getting it ready to sell, you just purchased one, or you just need a repair, get somebody that really knows what they're talking about. And I understand you'd have a transferable warranty. Did we mention that? No,
we didn't. So warranty is a transferable warranty that will go on to the next owner of the house. On a real estate transaction, I put the first name on it as the buyer, and then they can transfer that warranty after.
You mentioned one other thing too, that as long as they pay half up front, they could put the rest in escrow or pay at.
Correct.
You want to talk about that real quick?
So when I've really taken my business to a different level, because I work with investors and real estate agents and other contractors right now. Those are my main targets.
Yeah.
But when there's a real estate transaction, we always know that if mom and dad are moving out of the house, they don't sometimes have the money to fix it beforehand. When I come out, it can take a couple different directions. One is that the buyer could pay for some of the waterproofing, the seller could pay for some of the waterproofing, or the buyer or the seller. Right? They negotiate a split. I'm willing to work with people if they want to get it done, and it's on the close of a house. If it has to happen before the close, if I get 50% up front, you can put the rest in an escrow.
One of the things we do is do a pre-inspection on all the houses that we're going to list. The 10 vitals, and this is also part of it, where you would do part of that inspection up front, and people would be able to have that disclosed to them if they don't know what the problem is or how vast the problem is, and that we either can have it prepaid up front, or they could actually have the work done, put it on the disclosure, show that it's been done, transferable warranty, and then go forward so that we don't have negotiation issue at the end. So he's really offered you an awful lot of answers here. If you have a water problem in the basement or know someone else that does, I would imagine that you got stories out there that all could share. And if you want to have someone that you can really count on, look at the connections from the Linda Rea team, and Gary's definitely in it. And he will make sure, and Bonnie, that you are taken care of all your needs in that department. And don't forget our seminar coming up. Please check our website. We've got some important information from the state of Michigan, NAR, and the Real Estate Board of Realtors. So we like to share all that information with you and help you to understand all the noise that's out there, and that it's not as bad as you think it is. Actually, it's going to be better. So you have a great day, and give us a call. We'll make sure all your real estate needs are taken care of. Bye-bye.